Think you have been told that human violence is a byproduct of modern society? Stress, overcrowding, the corruption of civilization. The bones say otherwise. They say violence was our fundamental biological blueprint.
850,000 years ago, before Homo sapiens drew its first breath, before Neanderthals walked the earth, our ancestors in what is now northern Spain made a decision. They looked at the children of a rival group
not as fellow beings, not as kin,
but as moving caloric packages.
And they consumed them.
The cut marks on those infant bones are identical to the butchery marks on deer and horses found at the same site.
There is no ritual here. No desperation. Only efficiency.
Only the cold logic of nutritional extraction.
This is Atapuerca,
the oldest evidence of what archaeologists call nutritional cannibalism.
And it is not an anomaly. It is a pattern.
But the bones tell us something stranger still.
At a site in Neolithic Germany, archaeologists unearthed a mass grave. 26 individuals. Men, women, children. All massacred.
But it is what happened after death that no one can explain. Every single victim had their shin bones, the tibiae, shattered with deliberate force.
Not during the attack. After.
The biological support pillars of the human frame, demolished once the body was already still.
Why would anyone destroy the legs of the already dead? That question will haunt this entire investigation.
And everywhere archaeologists excavate, Spain, Germany, Romania, Egypt, they find the same forensic signature.
Human skulls, split with surgical precision along a single line. The sagittal suture.
The fibrous seam that joins the two halves of the cranium.
The tectonic fault line of human consciousness.
These are not the marks of chaos. They are the marks of method. A technique refined over hundreds of thousands of years. A biological technology passed down through generations of hominins who understood exactly what they were doing. This was not violence. This was not war.
What the fossil record reveals is something far more calculated, a mechanism so effective that it did not just shape human evolution. It may have been human evolution. It had not evolved away.
It had industrialized. At the Grandolina excavation site in Atapuerca, Spain, the evidence is forensic.
Undeniable.
850,000 years ago, a species called Homo antecessor, our direct ancestor, engaged in calculated cannibalism. But this was not survival.
This was strategy. The victims were children. Individuals under the age of 10.
Their bones show cut marks consistent with defleshing. Their skulls were cracked open.
The marrow extracted.
The brain consumed.
The human cranium, that vault of consciousness, was repurposed into a caloric extraction reservoir.
The fatty neural tissue inside, rich in nutrients, was mind-like or from a quarry.
This is not metaphor. This is forensic reality.
And the targeting of children was not random.
It was demographic warfare.
By eliminating the young of rival groups, Homo antecessor crippled their reproductive future.
Severed their lineage.
Consumed not just bodies, but bloodlines.
The question is not why they did this.
The question is why you thought they would not. Consider how your ancestors perceived the world.
Forward-facing eyes. Binocular vision. The configuration of a predator. Facial recognition systems wired deep into the temporal lobe.
Theory of mind, the ability to predict what another being is thinking, evolved not for empathy, but for anticipation.
For hunting.
And for 850,000 years, the prey was not always deer. At Pestura Cyclovina in Romania, archaeologists found a skull dating to 33,000 years ago. 2 identical fractures on the right side of the cranium.
Delivered by a left-handed attacker. This is the oldest near-conclusive evidence of intentional homicide. Not defense. Not accident. Murder. The sharp crunch of blunt force trauma on a parietal bone. That sound echoed through a Transylvanian cave 33,000 years ago. It echoes still. And this was not happening in one cave, or one valley, or one continent. Pull back. See the timeline.
Across the entire Pleistocene world, wherever Homo sapiens walked or Homo heidelbergensis, or Homo antecessor, they left behind the same forensic signature.
Their own kind, process like game. 850,000 years. Violence older than the Neanderthals.
Older than our own species by 500,000 years.
A massacre scale capable of causing genetic bottlenecks in entire populations. This is not aberration. This is the deep code. But the most disturbing site is not the oldest. It is the most efficient. Herxheim, Germany. 7,000 years ago. The Neolithic. Agriculture has arrived. Villages exist.
And in one of those villages, archaeologists found the remains of over 1,000 individuals.
They came from up to 500 miles away.
Their bodies were butchered. Their flesh was spit roasted. And their skulls, split along that same sagittal line, were fashioned into drinking cups.
This is not speculation. The forensic evidence is absolute. Fire damage patterns. Tool marks. The removal of facial features.
Herxheim was not a massacre site.
It was a processing facility.
An industrial operation that drew victims from across Central Europe and converted human bodies into consumable resources.
The skull cup.
A vessel for ritual consumption. The membrane of consciousness hollowed out and filled with something else entirely. And now we return to those shattered shin bones.
At Schöne-Kilienstätten, 26 individuals, adults and children, were massacred. Every victim's tibiae were demolished after death.
The bones that allow a human to stand.
To walk. To follow.
One theory, the killers believed the ghosts of their victims would pursue them.
Shattering the legs was spiritual sabotage. Ensuring the dead could never walk again. This is the intersection where human violence birthed supernatural belief. We did not create gods out of wonder. We created them out of guilt. Out of paranoia. Out of the knowledge of what we had done to each other. Religion did not civilize violence. Violence may have created religion.
To understand why this happened, you must see the world that forged it.
Imagine a Pleistocene landscape. Lush. Teeming with megafauna. But every resource, every carcass, every watering hole is contested. Not by predators.
The saber-toothed cats are manageable.
The wolves hunt different prey. The true apex predator is the hominin tribe over the next ridge.
And the only reliable source of high-quality protein, fat, and calories is walking toward you from the next valley.
There was no law. No taboo.
No moral architecture to tell your ancestors that the children of the rival group were human in any meaningful sense.
They were calories. They were threats. They were opportunity.
During the Pleistocene glaciations, survival was not about conquering nature. Nature was unconquerable. Survival was about conquering the only creature smart enough to compete with you.
Another human. The cold does not care about your intelligence.
The ice does not reward your cooperation. But the tribe that could organize violence, that could plan raids, anticipate enemy movements, coordinate attacks, that tribe survived. That tribe passed on its genes.
That tribe is your ancestor.
You exist because they were better at this than the others. The victims at Atapuerca, their genetic lines were consumed. Their children did not reproduce.
Their grandchildren were never born.
The humans who survived were the ones who did the consuming.
We did not survive the Ice Age. We did not survive predators. We survived each other.
And the sound that echoed across 850,000 years was not the roar of a predator. It was the crack of a human skull, split along the sagittal line by another human hand.
An alien observer would not see a species struggling against the elements.
They would see a self-pruning superorganism. A species that uses extreme violence as an evolutionary scalpel.
cutting away its own members,
mining its own bodies for resources,
controlling its own genetic trajectory through elimination.
From the outside, humanity does not look like a species that evolved intelligence despite violence. We look like a species that evolved intelligence through violence. Every moral instinct you feel, the revulsion at cruelty, the empathy for children, the conviction that human life has inherent value, none of it is default.
None of it is ancient.
It is a fragile, recent software patch, running on hardware built for intraspecies predation. We believe morality and peace are the natural state of humanity. The fossil record proves they are inventions. Fragile constructions built atop a mountain of our own fractured skulls.
Remember those skulls from the beginning? Split along the sagittal suture. The tectonic fault line of human consciousness. Those are not evidence of primitive brutality.
They are the symbol of our species. The vessel of our vaunted intelligence, cracked open and consumed by that same intelligence. We built our minds by mining each other's minds. The calories that fueled our expanding brains came, in part, from the brains of our competitors. We are not a species that overcame violence.
We are a species that violence built. And so we arrive at a question that no amount of fossil evidence can answer.
If extreme violence was the engine that created human intelligence, if the capacity for calculated cruelty was the trait that natural selection rewarded for 850,000 years, then what happens to a species that decides to suppress it?
Are we transcending our nature? Or are we dismantling the machinery that made us? The bones cannot tell us. But they remember where we came from.
And that fault line running through your skull, the one your ancestors learned to crack open, still runs through everything we have built since.